Hey guys, Kimi Katiti here. I have a few thoughts about the Barbie movie. I had a chance to see it about 2 days ago, and I honestly don't really remember a lot of it, but all I know is at one point I started crying. Tears from both eyes. I honestly really enjoyed the movie, despite the fact that I had spoiled it for myself and I had watched a lot of negative, scathing reviews about it. Something in me just wanted to investigate it for myself and see how I interpreted it, and ironically, I think that sort of willingness to see it for myself is kind of the point of the movie, and an irony about the sort of craze surrounding it and discussion going about it being very feminist and anti-man and so on and so forth. So I just wanted to share some of my thoughts about the Barbie movie and why I think it exposes a modern flaw with identity, why insecurity that was kind of showed and mirrored in the movie speaks to identity's major problem today, as well as the importance of embracing individualism. So let's get into this. First thing that I noticed with the Barbie movie, before I even saw it, was this sort of immediate split between two camps of what I felt were like conservatives who disagreed about the movie, and not just like disagreed with the movie, but had very strong convictions against the movie. I think the first two reviews I saw were that of The Critical Drinker and Ben Shapiro. Then I know that he's kind of the face of this content machine, so obviously he's gonna watch the Barbie movie and obviously he's gonna hate the Barbie movie. Critical Drinker's review I felt was just extremely scathing, to the point that I was like, and Ben Shapiro's as well, which I eventually saw. I just thought it was so scathing that I was like, I need to see for myself what would drive these men's opinions to be so boilingly furious, when I've never got any vibes from the Barbie trailer that it was that bad. I did also see Krystal Ball's review. Now she's more on the socialist side of the political aisle, and she does this show Breaking Points with Cigar and Jetty, and he kind of liked it and enjoyed it with the people that he saw the movie with, and she absolutely hated it. So it did rile up these like questions within me as to what it is about this movie that's causing such a serious split down the middle. I think the first thing is just the unpredictability of the movie. Now kind of getting into my actual thoughts on it and why I think it speaks to identity very well, is my initial gut feeling is that people just didn't know how to box this movie. They didn't know whether it was aimed towards young children or teenagers or adults. Hopefully I'll get to that point maybe down the line. But I was of the assumption that this movie wasn't for baby kids, like 7-year-olds or really young kids. I understand it's about Barbie, but the Barbie era kind of sits with millennials and those generations that come before the millennials, because I think Gen Z and every other generation coming after Gen Z is more primed to the internet and iPads and Paw Patrol and Peppa Pig. I don't know, just my opinion. So and also that scene with the beach off thing was in the trailer, so again, I hadn't had any assumptions that bordered on this movie being aimed towards kids, and I think that was a general major critique and misunderstanding a lot of people had as they went into the movie. I think its ideal target audience would be like teenage or maybe 20-something girls and their moms. I'm talking about like the literal mom and daughter duo that's kind of depicted in the movie with America Ferrera and her daughter. I think that's who the target audience really is, and I think it's very hard to target that dynamic because there comes a certain point in teenage girls' lives where their relationships with their mothers are just not really good, and they're trying to individuate, and their mothers are still trying to hold on to their baby girls. So I think it was a very hard road to ride on, and I think they did manage to pull something off that both teen girls, 20-somethings, and their moms, and even their grandmoms could maybe enjoy. And talking to people who have seen the movie that do fall into that sort of age category, I think they did, like, it landed well. I think they did enjoy it. People who expected maybe to watch this movie with their young kids, they might have missed the targeting, they might have missed the messaging, and maybe did not receive the movie as well. Anyway, besides that, I do want to get back to the point of going to see this movie for myself, because I think that act in and of itself was a core of the message of the movie, which is, you know, to summarize it in the movie's wording, I am enough. Like, you are enough as an individual. which I think makes this movie something that stands against the darkest recesses of woke ideology. Again, I know not everyone's going to agree with me, and again, that's kind of the point. We're in this stage in society where, especially in American culture, where you're either extremely on one side or extremely on another, and it's so hard to come together. As soon as people came out of this movie, or at least as soon as I saw reviews about it, it was all about boxing it into whether it was woke or it was not woke. That was the immediate reaction I saw from a lot of YouTubers and reviews. But the thing is, we are kind of losing sight of the fact that we don't have to divide ourselves into these factions. We don't have to pledge allegiance to either side. We don't have to politicize these things. And you might say the movie kind of politicized itself for the fact that it talks about the patriarchy and it's quite blatant about that. And side note, it is Barbie. It is this iconic toy that did break a lot of traditional stereotypes about women. So it kind of had that loaded into it. If you didn't see it coming, I hate to break it to you, but that was definitely gonna hit us. But yeah, a lot of people immediately broke off into these camps of, I'm not gonna support Barbie because it doesn't support these values that I think I should be only aligning with, or I'm gonna support Barbie because I see that Ben Shapiro hates it, therefore I absolutely love Barbie. And we're kind of afraid to be our own individuals. And so what you see in this movie, and this is kind of a spoiler, we see Ken sort of feel devalued and therefore look for value in the toxicity that he finds in the real world. This is a played up movie. I don't think they really meant to say that all men in the real world are absolutely toxic. I think it just plays up a lot of things to be funny, to be satirical, to kind of allow us to exit the real world really in an ironic sense. And so there were a lot of criticisms that the real world portrayed in the Barbie movie is extremely bent on this idea of toxic masculinity just saturating every aspect of life. But I think that's sort of the idea of toys and things being exaggerated. But anyway, when Ken sees this idea of what he thinks is the patriarchy, he then embodies this false identity where he identifies with the group and what the group has to own and possess and what the group should be able to do. And that group is sort of the patriarchy or this toxic form of being a man. And he thinks it's all about domination, and in his way twists things, but he thinks that through embodying this, he'll find value. He thinks that through becoming this respected or over-corrected respected man, he can come back into Barbie land and dominate things. And I think the movie's pretty clear that both the suppression that he suffered and what he tries to do to the Barbies just isn't good. They don't try to point as one being better than the other. I think it just points to the fact that you don't need to seek these group identifications in order to find value in yourself, especially when these are built off of sort of victimhood. So in a way, I think it speaks to false identity found in what you believe you're supposed to add on to yourself to feel value. And also it speaks to sort of the nature of some movements gaining the traits of their oppressors in order to sort of find value in themselves, and in the end just becoming as oppressive as the oppressive groups that they sought to free themselves from. I think it is interesting how we might respond to it based on our own worldview, based on our own experiences and our own tastes. Yeah, so I think this movie actually laughs at certain ideas, especially ideas that Hollywood likes to take super seriously, dare I say woke ideas. We see in the end, there's just this amazing conversation that Margot Robbie, Barbie, has with Ken, where she basically just enforces to him that he as himself is enough. He doesn't have to find value in being in a relationship with Barbie. He doesn't have to find value in embodying this overhyped version of the patriarchy. Like, he is just enough, and that's okay. And in a way, like, Barbie kind of underwent her own individuation and had to separate herself from what she thinks she has to have accomplished or be pretty and beautiful. Like, she was also just enough as is. And I think it just speaks to the importance of finding that individual comfort. That's the message that I got out of the Barbie movie. Yeah, I just found it pretty powerful and moving. There was this moment where the Billie Eilish song comes on, on, what was I made for? And I know the movie does get a bit preachy at times. I've heard certain reviewers talk about this, and I also got to see it for myself, where America Ferrera has this very like ultra feminist, it wasn't even ultra feminist, but it was certainly a woman empowerment speech. I thought there were actually some great points in there, but it was very like, hey, I'm telling you what this is really about. Like, it's super on the nose. But anyway, yeah, this is part where What Was I Made For comes on by Billie Eilish, and I've not been a Billie Eilish fan, but this song in particular just kind of changed my mind. I really like that song. As a Christian, I had a moment where I kind of reconnected with the Lord in that moment, and I was like, I understand. In my own like language with God, I felt like it was this reassuring idea that I don't have to find identity in what people think of me. I don't have to find my identity in the groups that I belong to, the allegiances that I devote my allegiance to. You know, I was made for you. I was made for a relationship with God, and God is the one in whom I find my purpose. And so I am okay as I am. I don't know, it just really hit me in that moment in a really beautiful and encouraging way, and not in a way where I think I was brainwashed by the messaging of the movie. But yeah, it just really touched me in that own like language with my father type of way. Ironically, Barbie was kind of having a moment where she was talking to her creator. Anyway, I just thought it was a beautiful moment, and I think there's this internal dialogue in the movie, and then there's this external conversation happening about the movie. But ultimately, I think it's a great reminder to zero in on the individual and making your own choice, and reminding yourself that you kind of take on the mind virus, the core era with what's wrong with woke ideology, when you're afraid of other people's ideas, you're afraid of media, you're fearful of maybe even saying that you even like the Barbie movie, because you have to play by a certain rule book where you follow all these rules and take on this identity that says, I am not like them. And so it's this us versus them thing in every aspect of life, right? And we say like, oh, everything's political these days, but in a way, we all play a role in things becoming political. We play a role when we wag fingers and say like, do not spend your money on that. We play a role in it, is all I'm trying to say, when we take on this group think. This is just a reminder to be you. Like, don't fall into the binary of this is red or this is blue. Investigate things for yourself. Search your interests for yourself. And it is okay to just be you as an individual. That's the messaging that I got out of the Barbie movie. There's a lot more I want to say. It was good, and I think it is just because it was like just a fun movie for women to enjoy. There are truths about the expectations put on women. I don't think it's woke to think about that. I think me aligning with my Christian faith first and foremost, before I stand committed to any group or idea or heterodoxy or whatever, I know that there is a certain tug and sway with modern feminism, but also with old Hollywood way of looking at women. Both are kind of not right. And there is this line I walk where it's kind of God giving me my identity, and I find complete peace with that. So there were some things I truly think that the movie does nail when it comes to womanhood, and also doesn't nail when it comes to womanhood. But I'm fine with it, because you know, not everything's perfect. So if you did see the movie, of course, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you hated it, let me know. If you didn't like it, if you loved it, let me know. And if you did like this video, give it a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate that. Love you guys, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.